We are in week 9 of the NBA Power Rankings, and first things first, rest in peace, Paul Silas, one of the great head coaches of the NBA. This has been a week of collapses. The Suns completely destroyed by the Dallas Mavericks. Then the Clippers collapsed to the Magic. Then the Warriors collapsed to the Jazz. Then the Cavs collapsed to the Kings. Then the 76ers collapsed to the Lakers. And then the Lakers collapsed in overtime back to the 76ers. Then the Mavericks collapsed to the Bucks after Giannis fouled out. Then the Pacers collapsed to the bench Mafia Nets. It has been one heck of a week of basketball, and teams that should not be winning are, in fact, pulling away victories that they probably should not. So let's jump into these power rankings. And somebody mentioned that I should start doing the full NBA rankings instead of doing division by division, conference by conference. So what I'm going to do is do the conference at the end of the video, but we are going to be doing 0 to 30, or I guess 1 to 30 power rankings of the entire NBA. And of course, starting at the worst team in the NBA, and no surprises, it is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. And they went off to a hot start. They were like, 5-5, 5-6, and then went on an 11-game losing streak. They went 2-1 on the week, not bad at 8-18 for the season, but overall just a really sad season as soon as Joshua Primo went out with everything, and they've just been struggling to put together wins. They did pick up a couple this week, but like I said, they're the worst team in the NBA talent-wise, roster-wise. They got one of the best front offices and head coaches in the NBA. I'm not worried about their future. I'm not worried about their drafting or developing. I'm just saying that this season is going to suck, and possibly next season, maybe one more after that, but the Spurs are in a good spot as far as front offices are concerned. And of course, you start with a good front office, and then you build the team from the bottom up. Coming in at 29 is the Pistons, and look, if Saddiq Bey is available for a trade, I'm going to send a future first for him if he's available. They're playing right now like a less fun Jazz team, if that makes sense. Cade Cunningham has been out, and they say he might be out for the full season, and it's just going to be another tough year of development, hoping that they got the right thing going on here. Dwayne Casey is going to make bizarre head-scratching rotations, but hopefully these players are going to continue to progress. That means Jaden Ivey needs to get better. That means Jalen Duren needs to continue to be a monster for this team. I mean, see if you can trade away Bogdan Bogdanovic for like 2 first-round picks. Just the Pistons are still rebuilding, and their number 1 overall pick is gone for the season likely. So, not great. Rough record, 7-22. Is it 7-20? Yeah, 7-22. Just a tough stretch of games right now. Coming in one spot ahead of them is the Charlotte Hornets, and just another yikes for them as well. Dealing with injuries, dealing with mediocre coaching, dealing with mediocre GM, dealing with an owner in Michael Jordan who's the worst owner/GM in the history of basketball. LaMelo Ball is out with injury for another long period of games, and it's just going to be a tough, brutal season for the Hornets. That said, they're actually enacting my plan that I said they should have at the start of the season when we saw how abysmal this team is. That's developed some of their younger guys. James Bouknight, but Kai Jones has been showing some flashes. They got JT Thor, Teo Maledon even has made an appearance, and let LaMelo Ball sit for the entire season, train up his game, fix his mental, hopefully get him back going for next year, but see if they can get a Victor Wembanyama on this team, because if the Hornets pair LaMelo with Victor, that would be a pretty scary matchup for the league. Coming in one spot ahead of them is the Rockets, and look, I'm just saying, Stephen Silas has been away from the team because of his father. They looked pretty good with the new head coach underway. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. That said, they're still in a drafting and developing part of their rebuild, so I'm not going to go out on any sort of limb here. I still think they need a new head coach. I still think Kevin Porter Jr. needs to run with the twos. He's taken way too many shots for my liking. I know Dyson Nix is abysmal, but even when he's in the game, that means that some of the other guys get to jack up shots. That means Jalen Green gets to shoot. That means Jabari Smith has started to look better. So it's not all doom and gloom for the Rockets right now. They even went 2-1 on the week along with the Spurs to get that 8-18 record. Coming in just one spot ahead of the Rockets is the Orlando Magic, and they continue to play teams tough. They continue to play winning basketball. Sometimes they went 3-1 on the week, beat the Raptors. I mean, they're an interesting team, especially with Markelle Fultz back, starting to get healthy. Cole Anthony came back from injury. They've just been battered by injuries like they are every season. But right now, they're starting to put things together. Now, is this team going to be competitive? It shouldn't be. Is this team going to look for a playing spot? I hope they don't. I think they need 1, maybe 2 more draft picks. Pair up somebody alongside Paulo, Franz Wagner. They got a lot of supplementary help, which is fine. You know, a Wendell Carter Jr., Bol is showing some flashes. Mo Bamba is still on the team. I just think they don't have enough top-end talent to be a really competitive team when they all hit their prime and peaks in 5 to 10 years. I like Paulo. I don't know if he's good enough to be a number 1. I like Franz. He's not good enough to be a number 1. Outside of that, I don't trust anybody else on this team. And I was toying with this next team with the Oklahoma City Thunder coming in at 25. I was saying, do we put them in the tier above, the tier of they're kind of competing, but not really? Do we put them in the tanking for Victor Wembanyama tier? It was a little tough to decide, but ultimately I'm going to put the Thunder at the top of this bottom tier, if that makes sense. That means these teams are all looking for good draft picks, and the Thunder are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander away from being a 5-win team this season. The dude is clutch. The dude gets buckets. He disappeared a little bit this week. He wasn't the superstar 35 points per game in the fourth quarter that we're used to seeing. All in all, they need Chet Holmgren. Bad. They are just missing length and size on this team. As good as Jeremiah Robinson-Earl has been, as good as Mike Muscala surprisingly has been for their team, they just need a big man to take over games, to defend, to rim protect, and they just don't have that right now. The rest of the players are okay. I like what Jalen Williams, the shooting guard, J-Dub, has been bringing to the team. He was a surprise for me at number 11, and he's been proven that he was worth that pick as well. One of the top rookies, might be on the all-rookie first team this year. Josh Giddey still coming into form. We're going to see about that. Shai, of course, has been great. Alexei Pokusevski's been whatever. Darius Bazley's been fine. Look, they need to continue to develop. I think they got a bright spot in J-Dub, and of course they have a bright spot in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let's see what they have in Chet Holmgren next year, but this year's starting to feel like a loss, and they're not completely out of it yet. You look at this record, 11-15, exact same thing as the Lakers, and they are fighting for a play-in spot theoretically. I just don't love the direction the team is headed. I don't love the body language. It feels like the Thunder are starting to come down back into this, all right, we're going to start tanking for better draft picks tier. And so this was the tank for Victor Wembanyama tier. Of course, tank for Scoot Henderson if you want. We'll talk about that later when we start getting into our mock drafts. But this tier above is a tier of teams that are stuck. That means they aren't really invested in the draft coming into the future. That means they're not trying to tank. They're trying to be competitive, and they're not doing a good job of it. Of course, first team coming in at the bottom of this tier is the Washington Wizards, and fans are blaming the coach. Ultimately, the issue comes down to the entire team, starting with the front office. Honestly, if we're blowing up the team, I don't know if I'd keep anybody, and that means Kyle Kuzma, who's looking to get $20 million, trying to get traded, whatever's going on with him. He could be a great piece for a contending team, as we saw with the Lakers when they won a championship with Kyle Kuzma as their number 3. Bradley Beal, he's proven that he can't be a number 1 option on this team. Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdija, Corey Kispert, all guys that can fill roles at times, but Kristaps Porzingis has been their best player, and he's been moderately monstrous occasionally game to game. He lacks consistency, and we still need to see him play a full season of basketball. I don't care how big his beard gets before we say, all right, Kristaps Porzingis back in an all-star form, maybe an all-NBA power forward center combo. They've gone 0-3 on the week. I think they went 0-4 last week. They're just in a brutal stretch of games right now. They have not looked the same since DeLon Wright went out with injury. As nice as Monty Morris was as a backup point guard, he just can't do it. He's not that dude to be their starting point guard. Wizards are just in a really tough spot right now. And hopefully they'll start to say, all right, this team isn't good enough to compete. Let's start rebuilding for once. God, Washington. Coming in one spot ahead of them is the Chicago Bulls, and it's a tough time to be a Bulls fan. They're 11-15, went 2-1 on the week, and almost went 3-0 if they didn't get that ridiculous shot from AJ Griffin in the last 0.5 seconds to go in after DeMar DeRozan hit those 3 free throws to clutch it out against the Hawks. Look, the Bulls can be good theoretically. Zach LaVine is still struggling to come back to that form that we saw. He just loves taking ridiculous contested fading threes instead of using his athleticism. Maybe he's not fully healthy. Maybe that injury is lingering. He just doesn't drive to the paint the same way he used to, but he still jacks up the shots, and he's shooting, what is he shooting right now? Yeah, my guy's shooting 35% from 3, which is just way below his league average. His career average. He's closer to a 40% three-point shooter. His shot selection, his shot quality is horribly atrocious. And he doesn't have the same impact on the game that he used to. He'll score 10 points in a row and then disappear. Lonzo Ball, probably not going to be back for the entire season. The dude is just injury prone, the worst injury luck in the world. And it is what it is. He was probably the difference maker on this team that we didn't realize until he's gone. It's the final year of the Vucevic contract, and while you appreciate what he's done, bringing this team out of the cellar and finally making them a competitive team, he's just not good enough. I thought he was the number 3 center overall in the NBA a couple years ago, and I was clearly wrong about that. So the Bulls just in a tough spot right now. But hey, there's still time. We're still, 1/3 of the way through the season, so they can turn this thing around theoretically. Coming in one spot ahead of the Bulls is going to be the New York Knicks. And it's tough because as soon as good things happen to the Knicks, bad things happen to the Knicks. They pick up a good win. Yeah, they beat the Kings. They're on a 4-game win streak right now. Cavs, Hawks, Hornets, and then the Kings, who are a pretty good basketball team in their own right. And then bam, their free agent signee, Jalen Brunson, out with injury. So it's a sprained ankle. Those usually linger for a little bit, 2 to 4 weeks before he starts playing, and then a couple weeks before that before he even gets to 100%. Just gonna be a tough stretch of games for the Knicks, who don't want Cam Reddish. Clearly, he's gonna be on the trade market after they give a first-round pick for him. Evan Fournier sucks, and it looks like they may be blowing up the team. Looks like they may be competitive. Who knows? The New York Knicks have just been a frustrating franchise to follow for the last 250 years. Coming in a spot ahead of them is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and talk about frustrating. This team is frustrating to watch because at times, D'Angelo Russell is going to be the greatest basketball player ever. Still no Karl Anthony Towns. Rudy Gobert, they're figuring it out, I guess, if you'll say that. Anthony Edwards, still sporadic as hell, and the role players are starting to contribute a little bit more. Again, they really could use a Malik Beasley right now. They really could use a Jared Vanderbilt, but at the end of the day, this is the roster that the Timberwolves have, and they're probably about what their record shows. 13-13 feels about right. I would expect them to be a 500 team with their wild inconsistencies. They're not a 500, they're an average team. They're a 500, holy crap, this team could win a championship. And then, holy crap, this team needs to tank and blow everything up. They're just going to fluctuate wildly up, down, up, down. And this is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves season, at least for the foreseeable future. Coming in one spot ahead of the Timberwolves is going to be the Miami Heat. And I'm pretty much done with them. I'm off the train. I'm off saying, all right, they're going to put it together. This team, this roster, it stinks. They didn't re-sign, or they didn't extend, or whatever. PJ Tucker, let him walk for nothing. Try to replace him with Caleb Martin, and it's just not the same thing. They didn't look to improve at all. Duncan Robinson is still a financial black hole right now, offering next to nothing to the team. And it's just a little bit sad because they're destroying and wasting Jimmy Butler's prime while not putting the pieces around him. Kyle Lowry just ain't it. That's going to look, in hindsight, to be one of the worst free agent signings in recent memory. Bam Adebayo, he's starting to get aggressive for the first time in what feels like 5 years, but he's not enough because the rest of the roster just kind of stinks. They all will fill their role. There'll be Heat culture and all that fun stuff, but they need talent. They don't need culture anymore. They need talent on this goddamn team, and they're lacking because when Jimmy Butler doesn't go crazy in the fourth quarter, who's going to get you a bucket? Kyle? No. Max Strus? No. Tyler Hero has been pretty abysmal for the expectations that we had for him. Dwayne Dedmon is still on the team. Gabe Vincent. I mean, the team is just not very talented top to bottom. And unless Jimmy Butler goes Superman, which he shouldn't have to in the regular season, they're just not going to be a very good team. That said, there's still the Heat, so that's why I've got them listed ahead of the Wizards, Bulls, and Knicks. I feel like theoretically they could turn it around. They could be probably a 4 seed in the Eastern Conference if they put the pieces together, make maybe a sneaky good move, pick up a Kuzma at the trade deadline, do something that could help boost the offense. But for right now, the Heat are kind of in a bad situation. Coming in ahead of the Heat, though, is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. And record-wise, they don't belong here. They're 11-15, went 1-3 on the week, but they're starting to turn it around. It feels like they're starting to put the pieces together. They got their lineup. Patrick Beverley at the 1, Lonnie Walker at the 2, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Austin Reeves, however you want to figure that situation out. I guess LeBron would be a power forward. Anthony Davis is the center, ? Thomas Bryant has started to remember how to play basketball again. The Lakers are starting to put it together. They're starting to win the games that they should. Now they went 1-3 on the week. Again, 11-15 is a pretty abysmal record if you're thinking about the Western Conference Finals champions Lakers. But when you're looking at the Lakers who started off the season in the tanking for Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes while they don't have their first round pick, this is saying, okay, Russell Westbrook comes off the bench. Austin Reeves has been a knockdown shooter for them. LeBron is old as fuck, and it's pretty apparent every single game that he plays. And Anthony Davis has started to be a monster at times. Now we just need to see the consistency, and we need him to stay on the damn court. But the Lakers starting to look almost impressive. They're not there yet, which is why they're in this, they're stuck tier. But I mean, if they make one move, if they pick up a Kuzma, that could be really good for them as well. One spot ahead of them is the team that they got whooped by, the Pacers. And the Pacers are they're just frustrating, man. They just always play at the other team's level. And this is kind of the issue with the Pacers before they made all these moves, blew up the team besides Miles Turner, and then got all this draft capital, is that they would always play to the other team's level and they would not be quite as good. Now, this team wins some of those closer games that the Caris LeVert, TJ Warren, Malcolm Brogdon teams didn't. But still, at the end of the day, I felt like this team is one draft class away, one superstar away, one Jaylen Brown type of player away from being a truly competitive championship caliber team. Ben Mathurin is that dude. Miles Turner has looked great, but all in all, it's just frustrating when you don't go and beat like the Pistons, when they lose to the bench Nets. I mean, what are you doing toying with your food? And then they beat the Wizards, and then they lose to the Timberwolves, and then they beat the Warriors, and they lose to the Blazers. This team will just refuse to beat the teams that they should and lose to the teams that they shouldn't. They just always play to whatever teams that they're playing's level. And it's like it's frustrating, but it's a young team. They could put the things together, put the pieces together, get a winning streak going, playing Indiana Pacer basketball. I feel like they could be even a little bit better than where they are seated right now at 14 and 13. I think they could be a top 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. Coming in ahead of the Pacers is going to be the Toronto Raptors. And it is a sad time to be the Raptors because they're just struggling at this point, man. They can't shoot at all. Scotty Barnes, he's not really slumping. He's just kind of the same caliber, the same level of dude in this sophomore season that he was in his rookie year, which is nice energy. He can pass, he can rebound, but he can't shoot. Scoring is a real struggle for him. And with this sort of 6'8" archetype that they love, there's a lack of scoring on this team. OG Anunoby, I think he hurt his hand or something. He's been shooting a career worst 3-point percentage this year. Gary Trent Jr. is the only shooter, but he's so streaky. Fred VanVleet has not been great to start the year. And then Pascal can't shoot. Precious Achiuwa can't shoot. Chris Boucher can't shoot all that well. I mean, they got a whole bunch of guys who just can't shoot that well. And you saw when they went up against the Magic that they have similar archetypes, but they just don't have that youthful energy anymore. When they play at home, the crowd gets rocking in Toronto. They start feeling themselves. They play great defense. They get transition buckets, and the Raptors win basketball. But then when they go on the road and they have to make threes and they have to execute their offense, it's just not as pretty. So the Raptors are going to come in not horrible, but they're somewhere in this middling tier. I have them at the top of this stuck tier right now because theoretically they could go either direction. They could go and get a higher draft pick and say, all right, we need somebody else. We could use a Ben Mathurin caliber player in this year's draft class that we could take. Or they could be a little bit more competitive like they were last season, be a 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So this is the tier that I have above them, though, and this is they could turn it around tier. All of these teams here could theoretically compete for their conference finals. They could compete for a championship, but there's so many teams with so many issues that they just need to get right. First team is going to be the Dallas Mavericks, and you saw without Luka, it is abysmal. It is awful, and we all understand that. Without Luka, this team is a bottom 5 team trying to draft Scoot Henderson. And surprise, Kemba Walker was not the solution. Now, I do think they have some potential help off the bench with Jaden Hardy. It's similar to what Bones Highland is offering to the Denver Nuggets. Spencer Dinwiddie and Christian Wood are good enough support. Tim Hardaway Jr. is so streaky, so I don't really know if he's going to be able to be a consistent, helpful player on the team. The rest of the roster, though, is expendable. They need to get rid of Dorian Finney-Smith. I'm sorry. Maxi Kleba, Dwight Powell, Reggie Bullock, any one of these guys, if you can get an upgrade at that position, especially as a secondary or third playmaker for the team, you do that right now. Jason Kidd is not a good coach, and the front office, hindsight could be 2020, but they should have re-signed Jalen Brunson, though. 2-2 on the week. With Luka, they're a good team. Without Luka, they're a bad team, and they use him way too much. His usage rate is way too high. He dribbles way too much. They need to figure out ways to play better team basketball instead of having Luka playing Luka ball, but that's been the way of Dallas basketball for the last 2 years. Jumping up to the 15 seed is the Golden State Warriors, and they had an impressive win finally against the Celtics, and it almost felt like that was their championship. That was their, we need to go out, play hard basketball, and win, and they won in fairly impressive fashion. Of course, the Celtics were pretty fucking dumb, playing drop coverage on Steph Curry with Blake Griffin sitting in the paint off of a screen. What are you doing there? Jonathan Kuminga is starting to look like a beast. Again, the Warriors are always a team that's dangerous. I had them as the number 1 seed coming into the playoffs. Had them as the number 1 seed coming into the regular season. They just have struggled. James Wiseman has looked like a bust. Jonathan Kuminga, he finally got minutes, and he's starting to show that he's worth it. Moses Moody, Jordan Poole has been pretty bad this season. But hey, 14-13, the NBA season is a marathon, not a sprint, so I'm not worried. I'm just not very impressed with how they've been performing right now. So they're going to be at the number 15 seed in the NBA power rankings. Next spot up is the Los Angeles Clippers, and y'all know the deal. They need to get right, period. So that means it's a marathon, not a sprint. Get Kawhi going, get him in rhythm, get him playing freaking basketball games. Make sure Paul George stays healthy. Get the team together, get some chemistry building, and roll into the playoffs. Right now, 15-13, 2-2 on the week. They're about a 500 team because Kawhi's going to be in and out of the lineup. They're not good without him. They are good with him. End of the day, that's who the LA Clippers are. You got to hope that they're healthy for their playoff run, period. One spot ahead of the Clippers is going to be the Utah Jazz, and the Jazz are just in a fun spot right now. Now, this point of the season is not great. They're dealing with the grind. They don't have Mike Conley. I think he's either out for back-to-backs or he's out for a couple more games with injury. Jordan Clarkson is gone, but they still compete every single night. They're about a 500 team, even though their talent is the 30th ranked team in the NBA, just because Will Hardy's got those boys flying around. Lauri Markkanen coming down from that All-NBA, All-Star level that he was playing at, but he's still a pretty good player for the team. And everybody just kind of fits. I don't know how it works, but Malik Beasley, Kelly Olynyk, Nickeil Alexander-Walker popped off. Just whoever comes in, they got that next man up mentality in Utah, and they have 450 first-round picks for the next 10 years. And who knows, maybe they're going to flip Kelly for a first. Maybe they'll flip Lauri Markkanen for 2 firsts, or maybe they'll flip Colin Sexton for some first. They are in such a good spot, minus the fact that they're not going to get the #1 pick this year. Kind of a, what are we doing here? But at the end of the day, hey, Jazz are in a pretty good spot for the long-term future. Coming in ahead of them is the Hawks. And yeah, the Hawks are in a weird spot. You heard that back and forth with Trae Young and Nate McMillan having a beef. Trae Young just no call, no showing. That's how you get fired at normal jobs, but we're not getting paid $28 million a year to play basketball. Theoretically, things are going good for the Hawks. They got a decent record right now. They got good seeding. Where are they right now in the East? They're the 6th seed, 14-13, over 500. I mean, like on paper, it looks like the Hawks are doing good. Hit a game winner with AJ Griffin, who's been a pretty good rookie. DeAndre Hunter is healthy, and then DeJounte Murray goes out with injury. You got all this drama with John Collins, who's out with injury, and Trae Young. He's great on the court. It's just off the court is the issue with him. Will he stay right? Will his head stay right? And will teams and teammates want to actually play with him? So the Hawks are in a weird spot. That's why I got them in this tier. Theoretically, everything healthy, everything good with them. They should be a top seed in the Eastern Conference. DeJounte Murray looks to be working out, and when he runs the offense, it looks smooth. But of course, DJ out with injury, John Collins out with injury, and Trae Young and Nate McMillan beefing makes you say, oh boy, what are we doing in Atlanta? Next seed is going to be the Blazers. And look, the Blazers with Damian Lillard are a lethal team. Jeremy Grant has been everything that they wanted when they traded for him. Yusuf Nurkic has been about what he is. He can bully some centers. He gets bullied by others. Anthony Simons, there's going to be some concern. They have the exact same problem that they traded away CJ McCollum for with Anthony Simons, but he's still a good player in his own right. Josh Hart gives him great energy. Trendon Watford's been nice for them off the bench. It's just, if the Blazers are healthy, they're going to be a top seed. When Damian Lillard goes out with injury, which seems to be a lot more frequent these days, they're going to struggle to win games. So 14-12, 1-1 on the week, and they're going to be sitting here at this 11th seed. One spot ahead of them is the Denver Nuggets, and the Nuggets, record-wise, are really good. They're 16-10. You look at their point difference, you watch them play basketball, you watch everything about them, and you just say, this team is still not 100%. They're not right. Nikola Jokic is still trying to figure out how to play, although he's been getting a little bit better now, alongside Jamal Murray, who's coming back from his own injury. Of course, Michael Porter Jr., bam, gone. Some kind of heel injury. Who knows how long he's going to be gone for. Of course, missed most all of last season. Aaron Gordon, I mean, he's Aaron Gordon. He's going to look really good some games and then just completely disappear for 2 months. And then who's their bench? Bones Highland, and then what else? And Bones has been a little bit crazy, a little bit out of control. Mike Malone's offensive systems have left you wanting, and the rest of the team is just pretty trash. That's why they're in this could turn it around tier despite their record. I think they're, third in the Western Conference right now, is that they just aren't performing well. They aren't matching what their actual record is. So good on them for winning games, but the basketball that they're playing, the brand of basketball, is not very good. I think they need to make 1-2 moves, but at the trade deadline, so they can be a legitimately competitive team, and pray to the gods that Michael Porter Jr. stays healthy. Coming in ahead of them is the Brooklyn Nets, and whew, the Nets have been firing on all cylinders, 3-0 on the week. Even when they sit everybody, they win basketball games, and that is just how impressive Jacques Vaughn has been, because if this was the Steve Nash Nets, they go 0-3 on the week, and everybody says blow it up, and Joseph Tsai says, no, we're not going to do anything. We're going to stay right where we are, and they're going to be disappointing everyone, and Kevin Durant is going to be tweeting out a storm. But hey, they are 16-12 right now. Just a really impressive stretch of games. When Kevin Durant plays, he goes, you know who I am. When Kyrie Irving plays, he gives you effort on both sides of the court. When Ben Simmons plays, he's there. But I love Cam Thomas coming out of the draft. He's just a really ball-dominant guard. So you saw what he's capable of. He's kind of got a Chris Middleton skill set in a Patrick Williams-sized body, which is not great, but could be great bench scoring if they use him correctly. He just needs the ball in his hands. The rest of the team, I mean, they have their roles, you know, Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Patty Mills. We had a Patty Mills sighting in 2022. I like the Nets. I just don't love it yet. They're going to be sitting here at this 9 seed after a impressive win streak. Of course, when you have Kevin Durant, you're always threatening to be a good team. I just still don't love the roster construction yet. I think TJ Warren needs to show that he can be a baller. I think Edmund Sumner needs to prove his worth. But at the end of the day, you got a legitimate, good head coach in Jacque Vaughn. You got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and to a lesser extent, Benjamin Simmons. Coming in at the last seed of this tier is the Philadelphia 76ers. And man, have they been lethal. They're starting to get healthy. James Harden finally comes back after missing a month. Joel Embiid just beasting. Dropped to what, 53 last game. Joel Embiid is capable of being the best player in the league when he wants to be. And Doc Rivers is capable of being a mediocre head coach when he wants to be. So the 76ers, I don't quite have them in that, all right, they're going to be beasting. I still think that they could turn it around. They need to get Tyrese Maxey back from injury, and they need to start putting together games. They need to go on a win streak, show that they have a good enough roster to win a championship, because I think they're the best team in the NBA theoretically. I think everything right. Joel Embiid's the best player in the NBA. Joel Embiid's the MVP, and Joel Embiid is the NBA Finals MVP. But they just refuse to get consistent. They refuse to have everything click on all cylinders. Get their supporting cast going. Shake Milton, Tobias Harris. Do they have PJ Tucker? Yeah, PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton. They have the talent there theoretically. Just need to put it together. So this tier coming up above them is going to be the top teams. They're not quite there yet because there's only one team that's there. And spoilers, it's the Boston Celtics. But coming in at the bottom of this tier is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. And I have them below the Kings for now, even though the record is much better, just because I don't trust yet. I don't trust that their injuries and John Morant's going to stay healthy and Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to stay healthy and Dylan Brooks is going to stay healthy. They're always good in the regular season. I just don't love how good their team performs in clutch time, in crunch time. But they play good fundamental basketball. Taylor Jenkins is a pretty good coach. Of course, John Morant and Desmond Bane and everybody, when they're fully healthy, the Grizzlies are a top 3 team in the entire NBA. But we just need to see that. They haven't put all the puzzle pieces together yet, kind of like how the Pelicans are starting to do that. I'm waiting to see that from the Grizzlies. Still a very impressive record here at 17-9. Coming in ahead of the Grizzlies is the aforementioned Kings. Had them as the second best team in the Western Conference before. Starting to come down. De'Aaron Fox is out with injury. Struggling to put together games, but I love the brand of basketball they're playing. Mike Brown has got these guys playing defense. They're locked in. They're engaged. They just need their best player, which is De'Aaron Fox, who's out with injury right now. One spot ahead of the Kings is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and this and the Pelicans are one of the 2 teams that everybody's like, oh man, this is going to be so surprising, but I think this team's going to be good. Yeah, the Cavs are a pretty good basketball team, and they traded for Donovan Mitchell, who's worked out perfectly. So Donovan Mitchell, right now out with injury, needs to come back. They still haven't been playing perfect basketball. I don't love exactly how the fit is working with Darius Garland needing the ball, but Donovan Mitchell needing the ball. Both of them super ball dominant, undersized guards. Evan Mobley has been okay for stretches, but Jared Allen is the lockdown defender that really transitions and turns this team into an NBA championship contender. The bench has been okay. Karis LeVert, just the streakiest guy in the NBA. Some games he'll drop 40, other games he'll drop 2, and there is no in between with this guy. So I need the Cavs to get right. I need them to get healthy, and then we need to see how good are they really going to be. Still playing a really good brand of basketball. They're in the top tier of the Eastern Conference, probably the 3 seed right now. That works. Coming in ahead of the Cavs, though, is the Phoenix Suns, and they might be finally on the way down. I've been saying this for the longest time, that I thought that all the chemistry and all the front office issues are going to affect the Suns and they're going to be a middling team this season. They started off super hot and now it's starting to come down. Chris Paul, of course, had his injury and he looks washed. My God, does he put up like 6 points per game now? It's been pretty atrocious to see Chris Paul, but then he makes those clutch buckets when you need him to. Still dishing out assists, still a defensive liability, still kicking people in the leg. DeAndre Ayton has been beasting and feasting finally for the first time in I think his entire career, but it's not translating to winning basketball. He gets in foul trouble, still doesn't play great defense, and does Monty Williams still actually want him on the team? Cam Johnson out with injury. Jay Crowder doesn't want to play for them, so they've got this weird thing, and now Devin Booker has that hamstring issue that's always lingering with him. So what's going to happen with the Suns? I don't know. This is kind of the turning point of their season. What are they going to be? Are they going to flounder? Are they going to struggle? Are they going to be a middling team for the rest of the year? Or are they going to be competitive? They're going to be those dogs. They're going to go back to being the best team in the Western Conference, because that was a brutal 2-game stretch versus the Pelicans where they got uncle, and they need to stand up and show out. Coming ahead of them is the Bucks, and the Bucks are just in a weird spot. It's been a weird week. They had that game against the Mavs. They've been dealing with the Chris Middleton injury for a while. Giannis still can't shoot. I mean, Then they lose to the Rockets. That is just an embarrassing, abysmal loss that should never happen again. It's a long season and I get it. They're still the second seed in the Eastern Conference, 1 loss behind the Celtics, 2 wins behind them. So what, 1.5 games behind them in the standings. It's not terrible. 19-7, very impressive. They have holes, and they had the same holes when they won the championship. So that doesn't mean that they're not a championship caliber team, but Giannis can't shoot. Now we got Chris Middleton dealing with injuries, and some of their role players are just that, role players. So when you need a bucket and you need a 3-pointer, is Pat Connaughton the guy that you want to rely on? Not really. Grayson Allen, I mean, he missed a dunk. Kind of sucks. Javon Carter is getting significant minutes on the team. That's just something that you worry about when you're looking at this Bucks squad. Ahead of them is finally the Pelicans, and I'm finally buying in. I know theoretically they should have been, my 3, 4, 5 seed in the power rankings when we started this whole thing, but I just need to see them get to work. I need to see Zion stay healthy. I need to see Brandon Ingram come back and stay healthy because I think he's still out with injury. God knows what's happening with him. What does he have here? A left great toe contusion? All right, Brandon, look, the Pelicans don't need him, but they do need him when the playoffs come around. So it's kind of similar to how the Clippers are with Kawhi Leonard. They're a really good team. They're rolling right now. Obviously, they have the depth. Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, Devontae Graham, Trey Murphy, Jonas Valanciunas, Larry Nance. I mean, the team top to bottom is stacked. They got that NBA ready, modern NBA roster that everybody's trying to get, where they have talent for the future like Dyson Daniels, who's been balling the hell out, and they have the win now talent like CJ McCollum and Larry Nance and Jonas Valanciunas. So they are ready to win a championship. Willie Green looks to be that dude, and Zion is starting finally to look like that #1 pick that they were taking him with 2 years, 3 years ago, whenever. But they just need to continue to prove it. They need to show consistency, and the NBA season is a long grind. Is Zion going to be healthy in game 63? I don't know. So right now I got the Pelicans #2 seed, top seed in the Western Conference, but I just don't know if I'm going to say, yep, they got it. They're locked up. Western Conference Finals already. And of course, we have one tier above, and that is the Celtics. Yes, they had a horrible loss against the Warriors. Yes, the Warriors are in their headspace. Yes, Jason Tatum, I don't know what happens, but he plays like an MVP against everybody else. But the Golden State Warriors just have real estate in his head for free. Now, there was no Al Horford, and there's still no Rob Williams. So the Celtics still could get even better than what they are. There's still some things to clean up, but they're the best team in the NBA by a wide margin, especially with the Suns' recent collapse. That is going to do it for the entire league power rankings. That is going to do it for me. Let me know what your thoughts are, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and I'll catch you in the next one.